Welcome.
Good intro.
Very much looking forward to this conversation about city networks, their role in addressing pressing challenges in cities, how they have evolved and developed over time as an increasingly critical entity, especially during times of gridlock and dysfunction at the national and state level, how they may exercise even more influence on the international stage. Alliances, interconnectedness, and mayoral leadership have been a bit of a theme today. So we'll start with the mayors. To bring this to life, mayors, can you share an example of a specific problem or challenge in your city that being part of a city network is helping you address? And if I may start with Mayor Namayanja.
Thank you very much. I have a saying, an old adage, that no man is an island. This applies to cities as well. The formation of national associations, regional coalitions, and at the global level has brought us together. And through these networks, we have been able, for instance, my city, we have an association of African mayors, Amali, and it is through this association that we have been introduced to Bloomberg Climate funding for
the Youth Action Climate Fund, yeah.
And the youth are now implementing projects related to climate change to push back the effects of climate change. It is through Amali that my legacy goal of having a clean, green, livable city. Remember, my city is a new city. It was established in 2020, elevated from a municipality. It was so challenging for me to address issues to have my dream realized. But the mayoral initiative has introduced me to have my legacy goal achieved because we are collecting data from that support. And we are also able now to track the number of trees we are planting. With the youth, we have created a coalition with the youth.
Yeah.
I'm giving examples because I want to be associated to what I do. I live in a community. I'm a direct elected mayor who comes from the community. And most of the population are young. It was very difficult for a mayor to associate with the youth. We have created a youth desk. They now come freely and interact with me. They implement programs. We are also members of the Strong Cities Network, which is addressing issues of hate, extremism, and polarization. You know, the youth are very vulnerable to being used, but when they come closer to leaders, it becomes easy. So networking is so important. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for James Anderson, if I may single out, Jerry Bruno, and Tiffany, because this is the link and the power of networking.
Yeah.
I feel so excited that I can speak at such a gathering of mayors far from Africa, from Uganda, a least known city. Now my city is at the international scene. I'm so grateful.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. So it's kind of like a several different networks coming together in this beautiful way that you described. Mayor Holt?
You asked about, what are some of our favorite examples of those networks assisting our work in our communities. So in the United States, we have, 2 city networks that are membership organizations, Conference of Mayors and National League of Cities, and then we have organizations like Bloomberg and others that are maybe not membership, but also bring together mayors. They all kind of overlap. They all kind of work together. I think they often, for a mayor, serve at least 3 purposes. One is obviously the exchange of best practices. 2, maybe my favorite thing, has always been the collegiality and sort of the emotional support of it. And the third thing is speaking with one voice to, in the case I'm describing, our national government. And so I have no better example of that than the bipartisan infrastructure law. The Conference of Mayors, where I'll be president next year, National League of Cities, where I've served on the board of directors, Bloomberg, everybody was pulling on the same rope, and mayors made so much of an impact in the advocacy around that in 2021. So much so that, I was like name-checked by U.S. senators in their floor debate, because they were showing how bipartisan the support for this initiative was across the country. Even if it wasn't always bipartisan in Congress, it truly was around the nation, but only by standing together as mayors were we able to demonstrate that. And we were on the front row on the South Lawn when that bill was signed. So I think that these networks serve a lot of different purposes, but obviously we hope and expect to benefit from the bipartisan infrastructure law in the years to come in Oklahoma City, as do many other American cities, and it just wouldn't have happened without city networks, at least in the United States.
Yeah, no, totally. And cities.
Yeah, sure.
City networks sort of elevating shared challenges. If I may turn to you, Carole, you lead a major city network, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, which represents over 2,000 Canadian cities of all sizes. How are you ensuring that innovative solutions developed by one city can be replicated and adapted to, the unique sort of local context by others?
Yeah, thanks, Bulbul, and thanks to the mayors. It's great to be here with all of you today. And I'm going to answer your question by focusing on really the ability of city networks to do that really uniquely. And I'll use us as an example. So you've stated it well, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. We have over 2,100 members from coast to coast to coast across the country, all the way from our biggest city of Toronto to our smaller towns, northern, rural, and remote regions as well. And that gives us, a real superpower, I would say, an ability, one, to influence the national discourse in an unparalleled way because of the collective influence of our membership. It gives us a really deep understanding of the very diverse needs, priorities, capacity levels of local governments across the country. And what I would say sets our network apart is that we also are delivering major transformative programs, including capacity building work. And so I'll give you an example of one of the ways we do it, and one of the ways we are most proud of how we do it, which is our Green Municipal Fund. And so this is a federal endowment to our organization focused on sustainability, on driving to net zero, on climate initiatives. We've been able to grow it recently to about $2.4 billion. When we use that to marry two things, we deliver funding and financing to local governments across the country to do front-edge sustainability work, climate work, resilience work, and we marry that with capacity building work. And so we bring technical expertise and we really leave sort of a legacy impact in that city and scale that across the country. And so through that kind of a mechanism, by way of example, in our time with the Green Municipal Fund, we've been able to deliver to over 2,300 sustainability projects across the country, over 1,500 aligned initiatives, and we're coming up to close to 200 capital projects across the country. And so a very significant impact, and I think what enables us to do that as effectively as we can is that we're a network with a deep engagement and understanding of the diverse needs of our membership.
Thank you, that's amazing. Sort of on this theme of the diverse needs of your membership and Mayor Namayanja's point about the value of city networks for cities, small and new, I'd love to know, how are you ensuring that all cities, regardless of size or resources, can benefit from your network?
Yeah, thanks. Well, that's a great question, and I think this is one of the highest value propositions of a city network, and I think it applies both to the big cities and to the small town examples as well. And so I'll give you, again, using our organization as example, the big cities benefit because we bring capacity to scale. We help them connect with one another and steal each other's best ideas. We bring them together. They're the tip of our spear for our advocacy work, and so their influence is collectively higher as we go forward. With the smaller towns, we really enable them to punch well above their weight, and we do that across the spectrum from advocacy to programming. And so from a programs perspective, we bring the technical expertise and the kind of capacity that with limited administration sizes across the country, they would not otherwise have. Yeah. And then they're connected in, as the mayor has said, to a network of peers, which helps in all kinds of ways, but also brings a collective strength on the advocacy agenda. You know, I was talking to recently the mayor of Cornwall. Her name is Bernadette Clement. She's become a senator since her time as mayor, and she was saying to me that in the course of the pandemic, that she felt alone and was wondering, oh my gosh, like how on earth am I going to deal with this challenge? This is Cornwall. For those of you who don't know, Cornwall, Ontario, small, mid-sized town, and she said it felt like reaching out to your network was having this like incredible network of smart friends that I could tap and who would help me figure this out as we went forward. And I just think that's one of the best definitions of city networks that I've heard.
Yeah, no, that's great. It goes to the your earlier point of just the fellowship. Quickly, and just would love any recent trends or developments that you're seeing from where you sit as a leader of a city network.
Yeah, well, I'd say one trend, if I'm being optimistic, and that I see and that I'm certainly advocating for, is for city networks to be really laser focused on delivering outcomes. You know, I think the best way to make the case for why cities need to be empowered is to help them deliver transformative outcomes that improve the quality of life for their citizens across the country. And so it's why I'm a big fan of the work that Bloomberg Philanthropies and Bloomberg Cities does to directly tool cities across the world. It's why we take the approach we do to do the kind of capacity building work that we do. Because like everything, I think the best way to make your case is to deliver well, and then it speaks for itself. And so I hope that that's a trend in the city network space that continues, that we focus in on how to do that capacity building work and leverage the scaling of ideas across borders.
Yeah, and be really able to share kind of the impact.
Yeah.
Finally, Mez, I would love for you to reflect on strategies that city networks of the future might deploy to be more effective and have more influence. And Mayor Namayanja, I'd love to start with you. What role do you think external partnerships with organizations like NGOs or the private sector or the international bodies can play in enhancing the effectiveness and influence of city networks?
Yeah, of course, scaling up what is done by cities and fed it into the global agenda is so important, because what we do at our level is not known by anybody. But when you have a network, you can coordinate and relate what you do. And of course, highlighting local initiatives, because cities understand their priorities. So what you bring out as your local initiatives can be replicated by other cities. We are here to learn. Yesterday we went to Utopia. I have a lesson and I have something to tell when I go back home. Amali facilitated African mayors to go and benchmark on a peer-to-peer learning in Addis Ababa. We saw how digitalization of departments is benefiting and bringing efficiency to the whole city. So I think networking cannot be avoided, especially in this era of globalization. We need a lot of support, aware that we are not at the same level, not the same capacity. We need to be guided. Before, I'll give an example of myself. When I had that dream, I didn't think it was so important to have data. But a question was asked in one of the meetings: how many existing trees do you have? And I didn't have an answer. Today, come and ask me, I'll give you an answer. Because I've been supported to know the importance of having data, and this is what we are doing. And I thank my team of consultants who are assisting my team back home to come up with all these initiatives. They've given us and developed our skills and capacity.
Yeah, so that's great. So really kind of getting that support for capacity building. Mayor Holt, you're going to be the next president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. How might city networks of the future amplify collective city voice on the global stage?
Well, I think the great unrealized potential has been for an international voice. And I'm not pandering when I say this. I mean, I think what we're a part of today and what the Bloomberg organization and CityLab has created is building something that has the promise of really meeting that potential of bringing mayors from around the world together to have fellowship, to share best practices, and ultimately see just how far we can test our own unified voice. It made an impact in the United States. Can it make an impact on global issues? And without the resources that this organization puts together, it's hard to bring all these people together. I would have a hard time back home, and I'm sure I speak for many mayors in the room, justifying a taxpayer-funded trip to a meeting in Paris or Mexico City. But the fact that the Bloomberg organization is willing to help with those resources and bring us together, there's a lot of kind of niche organizations, and there's a lot of organizations that struggle because they don't have the ability to actually cover those costs. But this organization, I think, is not niche. It's covering a broad spectrum of issues. It's bringing mayors and city leaders together from around the world, and it's now doing it consistently, which I think is what you just have not seen. So I'm very interested and excited about what's happening here. I think that it's not my role to tell the Bloomberg organization and Bloomberg Philanthropies what to do, but I think that they can, continuing to invest in this idea, something really special has been built here, and it can give an opportunity in the years ahead for mayors around the world to speak with one voice on important issues.
Fabulous. I think that's as good a place to stop as any. Thank you so much for your insights and for your leadership.
Thank you. Thank you.